On AM 560, The Answer.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So maybe the French Laundry incident won't cost Gavin Newsom his job. That's what polls seem to indicate, but polls have been wrong before. We had a similar moment yesterday, apparently, with the socialist Cinderella there, AOC, at the Met Opera's costume ball. She shows up in a Tax the Rich dress, a dress that had Tax the Rich adorning it.
And the event is $35,000 a person. Mm-hmm. So she taxed herself because her dress said she should.
She also was, donning the walk there and getting photographed without a mask on, while I saw other patrons who probably paid full boat wearing masks too. So I guess masks for thee, but not for me when it comes to the political celebrity. We'll see. And by the way, no word whether her ugly stepsisters, Sean Casten and Eric Swalwell, were in attendance at that ball either. Speaking of the French Laundry and Socialist Cinderella's moment, the actual dude responsible for the French Laundry moment, Gavin Newsom, on the ballot today for recall. And our friend and colleague, Larry Elder, is making a hard close.
And here's one of his latest campaign ads.
You remind me of the guy in high school who took my girlfriend, then went on to the next girl. You still think you're better than everyone else. You shut down public schools while your kids went to private school. Even now you live by different rules. You closed tiny coffee shops while you ate dinner at the fanciest restaurant. $12,000 for wine. You've lost touch with reality. This is not about political parties. It is about you, Gavin Newsom.
Recall Newsom. Bring us together.
And you don't want people to forget what he did to people's lives and livelihood. Here's Camilla. I know we played this a few hours ago, but she's crying. She remembers she didn't have to dig deep to recall what Gavin Newsom did to her.
Do you get the sense that the governor understands how hard life is for you and people like you?
Oh, sorry. It's upsetting. It's really upsetting. I don't mean to get emotional, but he has no idea.
It sounds like.
And she lost her restaurant, one of the many who lost and had to close businesses.
For more on what might transpire today, we're pleased to be joined by Susan Crabtree, RealClearPolitics.com correspondent. Susan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's great to be on with you.
So the assessment here is, will Gavin Newsom be evaluated based on his actual record and the quality of life Californians are living, or will the question be, do you want Gavin Newsom replaced by a Trump clone, which is the closing argument that Newsom and his allies have been making?
That's right. I think no matter how you slice it here, the fact that that Gavin Newsom has had and his supporters have had to spend $80 million on this race, and you know that the Democratic Governors Association, which put in about over $1 million, is not happy that they have to expend that kind of capital in a solidly blue state. So it does look like, according to the polls, the Real Clear Politics average of polls, that Newsom is going to win this and with a comfortable way. But it will come down to the independents in the state because there are twice the number of Democrats, roughly, than there are as registered Republicans, and turnout is running pretty high, so that will benefit the Democrats. So, basically, Gavin Newsom in the closing weeks is trying to wake up the Democrats to make sure that they do turn out to vote. And, no one could have expected this when he won over 60% of the vote in 2018. It's been quite a turn of events.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because for all the press coverage from the D.C. press corps usuals of how, Trump's problem, his low approval rating for so much of his presidency, he's just appealing to his narrow base and it's not a broad enough appeal and that imperils his reelection and so on and so forth. Well, right now, according to polling out just yesterday, I believe, Biden is double digits behind where both Clinton and Obama were at this point in their respective presidencies. And they suffered massive losses in the midterms. It seems to me that this Gavin Newsom event of having to fight off a recall in a state as deep blue as California is more indication that unless they change their trajectory and can be more attractive to independents, then there's going to be a change in power, and Biden's presidency is going to come to an end a little over a year from now.
It is a bad harbinger, no matter way you look at it, for the Democrats about 1 year out here from the midterm elections. And everyone's trying to, well, the Democrats certainly are trying to make this about Donald Trump. If you watched his speeches last night, you would have thought Donald Trump was on the ballot somehow, because they kept saying that, that Larry Elder was Trump's clone. And they said that Trumpism, even though Trump's not on the ballot, Trumpism is on the ballot. But what they don't say is that there are so many things going wrong in California right now. And Gavin Newsom, Joe Biden wanted to give him basically a clean slate when it came to the wildfires yesterday. He was actually up there bringing attention to these massive wildfires in the northern part of the state, which I thought was not the best move on their part, because a NPR Cap Radio investigation found that Gavin Newsom had grossly overestimated, completely misled the public about the type of fire mitigation he was engaging in last year, the highest year for fires in the state's history. They estimated it was like 690% over estimated the kind of mitigation efforts he did. So the governor does play a role in these wildfires, no matter what Newsom and Joe Biden were saying yesterday. And I think the American public knows this. And if you care about climate change, you have to care about what these wildfires are doing in California, spewing more carbon than all the automobiles combined in 1 year in the state. And the red haze that's going on near the Lake Tahoe area over the last couple of weeks, it's extremely alarming.
It just speaks to this, I think, limited currency that just not being Trump will have medium term. You may be able to get away with it in California, but the I'm not Trump, we're not Trump, and anybody who opposes us is Trump, even though they're not literally Trump, they're Trumpists, as you were saying, they're tagging Elder as. Boy, you're going to be evaluated. 2 years as president, 2 years with control of both the House and the Senate. You're going to be evaluated in those swing states you narrowly won based on, at least in part, and I think in significant part, what you did or didn't do and how you did or didn't do it. I just think they're deluding themselves if they think they can just brand everybody who criticizes them as a Trumpist and retain power.
I think you're right, because this Newsom, Dan Waters, he's one of the veteran journalists in California, and he works for Cal Matters. He wrote a column saying this was a self-inflicted wound by Newsom. The French Laundry was just one example, but it was the example. Yesterday you had him quoting Martin Luther King. It takes a lot of chutzpah to quote Martin Luther King when you're running against a self-made black conservative candidate who made his own destiny, and when you were fueled by Getty oil money. But that's the same kind of chutzpah that he displayed when he flouted his own rules at that French Laundry, and then he carved out all kinds of exceptions, just like Joe Biden is doing for the unions when it comes to the postal unions, when it comes to vaccinations, for Hollywood. And guess what? Hollywood gave him a bunch of money. Netflix gave him a bunch of money, and he allowed Hollywood producers to continue filming during the pandemic, when a third of small businesses are gone and will never come back in California. It's an interesting twist that you have people, respected veteran journalists in California who work for liberal-leaning papers, saying that this is really Newsom's fault.
Well,
you have to own it.
Yeah, who's going to get the Latino vote, and will the Latinos turn out today?
Well, they're not turning out, and so Larry Elder they make up about 35% of the vote in California. Huge slice, and they're not turning out for Gavin Newsom, and he's worried about that. I actually visited with Larry Elder on Friday, and he was out at businesses that were Latino businesses that were struggling, restaurants. He was at a restaurant in northern San Diego County on Friday morning trying to win over those votes. We'll see what happens. The return of Latino ballots is lagging, so that will be a problem as he looks back as Newsom and Democrats look back and evaluate how this played out.
Even if Larry Elder is not successful, I mean, the 2-month campaign, the money raised, the how much he imperiled Gavin Newsom's governorship, that is going to encourage Republicans and hopefully black Republicans around the country too, because of the support that he got, and again how much political cost he imposed on this Democrat socialist power structure in California. It's still really something, regardless of whether Elder's successful. She is Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics' White House and national political correspondent, RealClearPolitics.com. Susan, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Does your office building morph into a giant blast furnace during the summer? By the afternoon, the heat index feels like 125 degrees in the shade.